Today we are going to start with lists, then we are going to go to tuples, and after that we will learn something really important called regular expressions. All right. So great. The first thing that we need to do is install something called Jupyter. So there are three words that we are using. One is Python. Python is a programming language. Okay, it's a general purpose programming language. You can do almost everything with Python. Okay, and Jupyter is kind of an editor. Generally, people used to use Python interpreter, which is interactive shell. You type in the expression, it gives you the result just like a calculator does. In the same way, people made interactive shell available in the form of a notebook, and that's what is now called Jupyter. Jupyter provides you various kinds of notebook on the same line as Python. And what you do is in the text box here, you type in an expression like this, okay, and press Shift Enter. You get the results here. Okay, behind the scenes there is a kernel, Python kernel running, as in which is basically Python interactive shell. And whenever you do this, it's going to talk to Python kernel and then going to evaluate it. So here it's probably the most simple program which says 2 plus 3. It's like a normal calculator. So what you see is here it shows that this is a comment and this is an expression which is like a calculator. Now we can also define variables. There are, and you don't need to define the data type. Python infers the data type by itself. There are, this is how you define a number, this is how you define a decimal number, and this is how you define a string. A string can be defined by surrounding double quotes or by surrounding single quotes. If you are defining a string with double quotes, the single quote can be part of the string. If you're defining the string with single quotes, then double quotes can be part of the string. All right, and you can comment out a special character using slash. Okay, that means now double quote, this double quote has lost its meaning. The actual meaning was that it was ending the string. So by putting a slash before it, it's commenting it out. All right. So this is how it works. Now, so we can print value of these variables using the print command, and print function is basically an inbuilt function which lets you run which lets you print any of the values of an expression. Okay. Now, the next step is you can operate on these variables. Variables is nothing but a place in the memory which can be changed by assignment operator. So here we're saying that change whatever was there in y with the value of x and add 4 to that. Okay. Here the meaning of plus is concatenation. Here we are multiplying x and y. Okay. So you see that we have added 4 to x, which became 6, and so on. All right. Those who are trying to access this notebook, come over, and this is going to be the easiest way to try it out. So access this. Whatever I'm doing in the notebook, it's going to be available almost instantaneously in my GitHub repository, so that you don't need to keep on typing. Instead, you can copy paste a larger piece of snippets. So I'm just going over the basics. This is how you operate on variables. So far I'm hoping that you are not feeling out of place. Then you can define complex expressions like this. The rule of expression, like the brackets are more important than multiplication, and multiplication is more important than the addition or subtraction. So those same rules apply here also, and the expression is computed from right to left. Okay. Now, the equals operator has the lowest precedence. To know the data type of any variables, you can use type. Here, the value of x is, how much is the value of x? We can just check print x, right? So which is 2, and it's an integer. Okay. Now, to check the data type of string, we can use type again, and it would show str. In case of price, it is showing us float. So If you want to run, and also what's a Python program? Python program is nothing but if you take all of these and put it in a file and save it somewhere, that becomes the Python program. You can basically create go to say folder structure here, the Jupyter dashboard, and there you can create a text file, and then in the text file you can put your Python command and give it a name. You can give it a name from here, and it's generally optional to put whether .py or not, but it's generally better to put the surname as .py. Okay, so this is hello hello.py. I'm just writing my first Python program, and here I'm saying hello, and I'm just putting one more expression here just to give you an idea that you could put many things. And then I hit Control S, and then so this is my program. Now one thing what you can do is with this program is I can log in into console and run it, or I can call this program from within here. So I can actually say percentage run and hello.py. Okay, so you can see that this part has printed hello and 7, while this part has printed simple, the output of simple.py. Then simple.py, some simple exp.py is this other program that we wrote earlier. Great. So this is how you can call um, any other Python program. Now, if you want to run any Unix command like ls, you can use the exclamation mark. Okay, so I can just run insert a cell below. I can just insert another cell. Now, a question is that how do I execute any other command? So I could simply say exclamation ls. So here it's showing me the list of all the files. Okay, and these are all the files. All right. Similarly, I can do things like I can run Python and say hello.py. That means I'm running this program using Python. Okay, this is how we generally run a Python program by the way of command. Okay, now a question from Binda is that how to download the script from GitHub. Okay, there are multiple ways. One is you simply download it here. You can say click on raw and then save the notebook. Click on raw here like this, and then it'll open this. Or I'll give you a better idea. What you can do is you can go over to ML project here, and you can say here you can copy this and clone it using Git. Okay, a better idea would be that you download something called Git. Git is a client for many for basically Git repositories. So you can copy this URL and say git space clone and clone it, or you can just download it as a zip, and the entire folder will be downloaded. Okay, that's easier and a more stable way of doing this. Okay, but if you are doing the git clone, if you're doing, like for example I had done earlier, let me show you my terminal. So I'm just opening this and going to my project folder, and this is this you can do in either CloudX Lab or either. Okay, coming back to git clone, so you could say git clone and provide the repository URL. Okay, and say I'll just use this one, git clone this. Okay, so it has brought everything here, and every time I make a change, what you can do is git pull and enter. Okay, so every time I make a change, this would get updated. All right, so using git pull, you can pull whatever newer changes I'm making. All right, the same thing you can do in CloudX Lab as well. So you can go to CloudX Lab, click on My Lab. There we have provided you the entire, all of the details. So you could go to lab credentials. Under lab credentials, you could click on, say, Jupyter, as well as you could open a web console and log in into the web console. So basically, when you take CloudX Lab, you get a Linux server with everything installed, and this Linux server is part of Hadoop cluster. Okay, so what you see here is that this is my Jupyter, the one that I'm operating on, and whatever you clone here in the console will be available here as well. Okay, these are my folders available in the console. I hope I made very clear. A question from Manoj is, it is necessary to put percentage before run? Yes, if you are launching a run command to run a Python program, then you will have to use percentage. Okay, great questions. Keep the questions coming, and that's the only way to learn. Okay, so afterwards, what we learned was that you can read the input from user using input, and whatever prompt you would like to show, you put that as an argument. So you could say, shift enter, who are you? I'm say Sandeep, and it's saying welcome Sandeep. Now you can convert a string into a number using int, and then you can do other operations on it. Then you could use a try catch. What does try catch do? Try catch makes it possible to catch errors. Sorry, try except. I'm quite used to try catch in like in other programming, but here in Python it's try and accept. Try and accept. So in try and accept, what you do is whatever error, whenever there's an error that occurs at any statement, it will come here. Okay. Say, for example, when we input something and it's not a float and it's not able to convert that whatever we have entered, it would throw an error. So you can check it. And here I'm just entering this instead of hours. It says wrong input. A question from Manoj: how to execute the GitHub command you are just showing using command prompt or Anaconda prompt? Okay. To run the GitHub command, a better way would be to install GitHub client, and that way you can bring the GitHub repository. All right. So probably the GitHub desktop. So if you say GitHub desktop, will help you bringing the repository local. Okay. For desktop, you can use this, and for Linux console, the Git is already installed. Okay, good set of questions. Keep the questions coming. Now, the other thing is that we could create comparison operators, and we could use if conditions like this. The way it recognizes that if condition is still continuing is based on the tab. So this means that it is part of this if condition because it is indented. So indentation is enforced in Python. Indentation could be 2 spaces, 3 spaces, 4 spaces, but it should be consistent. All right. So this is assignment while this is, you can also put if else. And here there are 3 things: if, else if, and else. If this condition is true, then do this. If this condition is true, then do this. Else if this condition is true, then do this. Otherwise, if none of these work, then do this. Okay. So here is a question statement for all of you. And yes, so let me just change the cell type to markdown. And okay, so I could actually change it like this. Okay. You can add 2 numbers like here. Then we talked about functions. Functions are defined using def keyword. there is a function. We put def is a keyword, and this is the name of the function. Then we pass two arguments, and then these are two arguments, and these are the input to the function, and the function can return a value. So these two things are input, and this is the output. So a function can return anything, as well as function can take as many parameters as possible. Here function is taking two arguments and is returning a single value. Okay. Then we talked about loops. There is a while loop. While loop is indefinite loop. So while loop keep running these instructions again and again until this condition is true. So as long as this condition, which is n greater than 0, is true, it'll keep running this. In case we forget this, it'll keep running indefinitely, and that's why this is called indefinite loop. So yes, we have to use the return statement. So if you do not return anything from a function, the data type that's returned is none. If you try to assign something, and let's say we forgot here to return things. Okay, I just give you a demo, and we defined it. So here when we assign it, right? So the return type is none. Okay, so in case you forget to return, it will not return anything. Though that's not true in other languages. Languages such as Scala considers the last value of expression as the return value. But here in Python, it is none. Okay, good set of question, good set of questions. Keep the questions coming, and that's probably the best way to learn. You're not stopping class by asking question. You're actually helping the class by asking question. Okay, so that's the only way to learn. All right, and we also learn to be considerate to each other's questions. All right, because quite often that some of the students to think that the other person's question is not in the context. Okay, so we learn to be considerate to each other's question. Now a question from Bindao is that if change return to print. Okay, let's just change return to print. All right, good point. So let's say I'm changing here to print. Okay, and my suggestion to all of the attendees, all of you, is that use my suggestion would be to do things as we are talking. In the olden days, it used to happen that there would be a theory class and then there will be a separate practical class. But here we all can do things together. You'll get enough time, and it's basically whatever I'm doing, you can also try doing it. Okay, that's why I've shared this sheet with you. Okay, shared this, or you can simply just what you can do is just go to this link which I shared with you and open this, and this way you can basically quickly copy paste it into your Jupyter. Okay, so whatever I'm talking about, you can quickly copy paste it to Jupyter. So here we are just printing it and not doing anything. So you can see that here 8 was printed, but the second print gave us none, right? All right, so I hope that answers your question. All right, now we talked about loops. So this loop is going to keep on running till n is greater than 5, and afterwards, once that's done, it is going to print blast off and then the value of n. So it's going to print first 5, then 4, then 3, then 2, then 1, and finally 0. Okay, so you can see that. Similarly, we can keep on taking the input from the user again and again until the user types something. This is again a indefinite loop, and the way we are breaking it is using a statement like break. So break basically breaks the loop, not the if condition, not the function. It only breaks the loop. Okay. Now, a question that I should have answered you a little while ago, and it was related to the lambda expression. Okay, I will talk about it a bit, or maybe just after the recap, I can do that. Okay, great, great. All right, so there is an interesting question, and I would like to answer that question. Question is from Mank that what if a function has multiple inputs, multiple output? How to implement it as there will be only one return statement? Good question. And today we are going to learn something called tuples, and or you can implement this using an array. Okay, I'll just show you how to use an array. Array is nothing but list of things that again we're going to talk today. So if let's say you're going to return two values and you say, um, okay, so you say, I'll say order two, okay, order nums, and here the function a and b. Let's say we are writing a function that returns two values in order. Okay, so what we do is if a is greater than b, we say return a comma b, else return b comma a. All right, so now you can see that if I say order, let me just print it, order nums 3 comma 4, and similarly let me just take the another example, and here I'm calling it on 13 comma 4. So you can see that 4 comma 3 is the output first and 13 comma 4 is the output second. You see that? We'll talk about other things like list and tuples today. For time being, let's just assume that list is a list of things. List is a list of things, and list things could be anything. It could be list of lists, it could be list of strings, it could be list of integer, string, or combination of all. Question is list and array same? Yes. In Python, list and array are same thing. We can define a function with we can define a function with the we can define a function which can return multiple values. Now, next question is something that somebody that asked me that can we learn something about Lambda functions. I'll just try to describe a bit more about Lambda functions. So imagine that we want to define a function called squares. Okay. Also, we can write the entire function in a single line. We could say, let's say we are defining a square, and we could say x into x. Okay. Now I can call this square function on any number. You see, I have been able to. So you can define a function which has a single value. I'm not sure if this works. It doesn't work. You must have a return value, right? So what you see here is that we just defined a very simple function. All right. Okay, let me, before jumping further, a question is from Manoj. In this, we have returned BA, but the output is AB. So if you see, it's not. So when we pass 3 and 4, it compared 3 and 4. Since 3 is not greater than 4, so it returned this, which is 4 comma 3. You see that? Then we passed 13 comma 4. My bad, because the 3 and 4 they look alike. And so here 13 is greater than 4. Therefore, it has returned AB, which is 13 comma 4. All right. Again, coming back to the functions. In functions, we can define functions without the body. Now, sometimes we would like to define a function which takes an argument as function. Okay. Let's say what we want to do is we want to um, we want to say, let's say we are writing a loop, and we say that we define that my map. Okay, what my map does is it takes an array as argument, and it takes a function as argument, and it applies this function on every element. So what it does is, for I in A, what it does is it first creates an array. It creates an array, and it keeps appending to an array. Okay, I'll just don't panic. I'll explain to you in details. Okay, and then we finally do this. Okay, so what you see here is that there is an array. This is my array, and this is my function that we can pass. So in Python, a function is just like another object. We can pass it around, we can call it, and we can assign to a function variable another function or another value. Okay, so function is just another variable in Python. So a name could point to an array, a primitive value, or an object, or a function. All of these things under the hood are treated in a similar way. Okay, so here this name is basically a variable name that we have defined for this function. Okay, yes, I'm defining that. Okay, I'm defining lambda right away. Okay, now, so what you see here is there are two things we are passing, A and F. A, we would like it to be an array, and F is some kind of other function that we're passing. And what we're doing is whatever we pass as argument, we're going to run that function. Okay, so we are going over every element of A for I in A, and then every element we are going to run this function that we have passed. Okay, this function that we have passed, and we're going to append this value to our list. Is it clear to everybody? So we can call my map with let's say 1 comma 2 comma 3, and we could pass sq. Okay, thank you, Kamal. Let me just pass the repository to you. Okay, good. Thank you for the reminder. Great. So I'm hoping that is pushed. Okay, now the whole thing will be a little faster and it'll be easy. Okay, so this would have reflected in the GitHub repository. If you want to check, let me just show you that. Okay, if you go into Python, and here, if you click on Python getting started, okay, are you able to access the notebook? Wonderful. So again, is this function clear to everybody? Let me show you the output. So what it did was it applied this function. You remember this function, the simple function that we created, which basically multiplies the value with itself. If you're passing it 10, it gives you 100, which is 10 square. Okay, if you if you call it on say 1, it'll give you 1, and if you call it on 2, it's going to give us 4, and if you're going to call it on 3, it's going to give us 9. And that's what it did. All right, so what you see here is an interesting function that it basically is take the function name is mymap. I just wanted to create this kind of function so that I don't have to keep writing the loop again and again. If I have to do something in loop, all I have to do is call this function. So let's say, okay, so what we can do is we could say mymap, and let's say I would like to now instead of cube, I would like to say cube. Right now, I have two choices. Okay, I have two choices. One is I again define another function called def cube, and I say here return x into x into x, and there we can say, all right. So I could actually do print instead. Okay, I'll just do print instead, and here also I'll just do print. So what you see is without writing loop, I'm able to run this function on every value. Good? On every value. This way, if I have to get anything done on a list, I don't have to write a loop. I can just call my function, this function called mymap. Okay? A question from Kamal. I can see it is updated in browser, but I cannot edit that file. Right, right. So better way would be to use a Git desktop, and you can keep on using Git pull, and it'll keep on bringing that file locally. Okay, and that will be a quicker way. All right. Let me also see. We have made some notes on Lambda operator. Question from Subrama is that so in my map, I need to pass a function to f variable. So here I can pass as a f variable. So cube is the function that we're passing as the value for f. And what happens if I make mistake and pass another kind of variable? It is going to give you an error. Let's say I passed here something like say for 3, right? So what it says is that here int is not an object and is not callable. Why? Because when we gave 3 here, it went till here, it accepted it, and then when it tried to run 3 with the value, it's not allowing that, because if you run 3 brackets and 1, it doesn't make sense. That's why it threw an error. Gopi, I'll answer that question. Okay. I've not yet started the Lambda part. Okay. Now, question. So, is it clear? Is it clear to everyone what we did here? Basically, we wanted to demonstrate to all of you that you can pass a function as argument. Okay. You can pass a function as argument, and you can call it like this. Just like any other variable, we passed a function, and then we're calling it. Okay. There's nothing like pointer to function and this and that. A question from Kamal is, why is the sequence of number so messed up? Okay. Yes. that is going to be different because this number is representative of where it ran. Okay, a quicker way would be just that you run your local Jupyter, open this notebook that I have shared with you, and keep refreshing that one and keep copy pasting the code from this file. Okay, I've just again pushed the changes. Okay, this is where we were at the point, and now this is where we are. Okay, just getting started part. This is the only part which takes a bit of time. Rest of the things will be easier to you. So that's why. I, okay, so okay, so now you would see that it's not that messed up. So here you see in line 29, and this is the place where I'm coding, and here also it's line 29. Okay, so I would say that just keep this Jupyter notebook open and keep on copy pasting this piece of code into your Jupyter notebook, and that'll be good enough. Okay, unfortunately, there is no better tool, and it's a good opportunity for us to create some good tool for collaboration in the live sessions. Okay, earlier I thought that I'll share the code over the chat, but what was happening is that this chat was removing all indentation and new lines and making it, you know, completely unusable. Great, great. A question from Venudeep is, what does R equals? Oh, good question. Now, again, let me go over this. So we define a function which takes two arguments, a and f. Right now, we're not defining any kind of data type for these variables. This is just my function. It says that I'll take two arguments and I'll give them two names, a and f, so that you can with call me with these as the input variables. Okay. And then we are saying that define a list, which is an empty list with the name R. R is the name for this list. You could keep anything. Okay, you could call it my return value. Okay, this is my return value. Okay, and in this return value, we are appending this value. Okay, and here we are saying iterate over A. And then here, this is the most important part, where we are saying that call the function f on I, and then do this. So this function is an interesting function that we just created. This function can be called on any list, with 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 second argument as the function. Here we've defined a function called square, which basically squares it, and here it runs it. Okay, all right, is it clear, Vinudeep, now? Then we call the same function with the same list, but different function, different second argument, right? So earlier we were squaring it, now we are cubing it. Okay, and this is where the idea of the lambda function comes into play, because every time we have to do something, we are first defining it and then doing it. Instead, let's say we want to just multiply all numbers. Let's say we just want to multiply all these numbers. So what we could do is we could simply say print. Okay, print. Or we could let's say we just want to print these numbers. Okay, we want to print these numbers, and then you see the okay, R is not defined. Why? Because it should be RET value. Great. So now you see that what we have done is we just wanted to print each number, and what we did was we basically passed print as a function, right? So here print I is being called. So this will be print I. Now, let's say we want to just multiply every number by 2. Now, instead of defining the function, define x equals x into this, we could simply say, we could simply call my map with the same array. Let's say this time we add one more, and then we say lambda x x into 2. Okay, let me just comment out everything that we have defined earlier so that it doesn't cloud our output. Okay, so you see that here what we have done is we have defined a function which is anonymous. This function does not have a name. It takes an argument x and multiplies it by 2 and gives it here. Okay, that's what is lambda function. Okay, lambda function is an anonymous function. Lambda function is an anonymous function, and that can be utilized to quickly define a function, right? Otherwise, what we had to do is we had to say define my function and then take an argument and then return x into 2. So you can see that this and this are equivalent. All right. So this is the lambda function. So with lambda function, you could define anonymous function almost instantaneously. Again, you can also return a function from a function. Okay, you could also return a function from a function. Imagine that. Okay, I'll talk about that part later. So here, I hope this is clear to everyone. So a question from Kamal is, what if the function takes more than one variable? Right. What would happen is it would throw you an error saying that the function that you're calling here should be called with 2 arguments. Okay. Now, second question is, how do we define a function that that takes 2 arguments and does something? Let's say we are writing something like okay. So you could even say lambda x comma y. I'll just show you with something out of the box instead of me defining it. So a very good question, and there are actually a couple of questions. Um, Let me though answer those questions. One of the questions that I would like to answer is that what if I need to define a function that takes 2 arguments, right? Let me just define a function. Let me just define a lambda function called sum. And that sum is equal to lambda x comma y return, not return, and I say x plus y. Okay, so you see this sum function here, and sum function I can call like this, right? So this way you can define a lambda function with which takes multiple arguments. And also you can see that when we define a function, it's just another variable that we are assigning it to. Okay, or we could just pass this as argument somewhere. Okay, a question from Gopi is that why is there none, none, none appearing? Okay, why? Because let's say here, imagine what would have happened. Let me just comment these. Okay, also in Jupyter, to comment quickly, you can say, if you're on Mac, you can say command slash. On Windows, it would be control slash. Okay, imagine here that we are printing the result of this, and we are also saying print. Okay, so what would happen is it'll print the actual values, right? So let's make it is here. So what you see here is that we're calling this function with two things. One is array and other is print. Now, what this function is doing is it's going over every element of this list, the argument A, and then it's calling f on every element, which means that it's going to call print on every element. And when it calls print, it's going to print 1, 2, 3, right? And once it has finished calling that, it's going to assign the value returned by print to v, and print returns none, and therefore the array will be appended with none. Okay, okay, all right. So I hope that answers your question, Gobi. That why would none be done? Yes, yes. Okay, so there are some questions, some more questions. Do I have to write lambda in one line? So good question. So the way you generally use lambda is for quickly defining a function, but I'm not really sure. Let me just give it a shot. Okay, let me just give it a shot. I've not defined lambda in more than one line before. Let me just see if I can do. Okay, it says invalid syntax. It doesn't let me define the string. But if I say return, no, it doesn't let me define lambda like this. Looks like it doesn't let you define. Okay. Okay, so no. So I think the main purpose of lambda is to be able to instantaneously define an anonymous function. And also lambda basically returns an expression, right? Returns a value of an expression, and therefore, because we are not using any return keyword in general, right? In case you have multiple lines of code and you would like to define it as lambda, my suggestion would be just define it like usual function, because you can do the same thing whatever you do with the lambda with the normal functions. Okay. A question is how to call a lambda function from console. In the same way, you basically, if you are on console, what you can do is, I'll just show you. If you are on console and you're on interactive console, let's say here, and you just defined a function like lambda. Now, to be able to call a function, you should be able to, sorry, it is really bad. Okay, so to be able to call a function, you should be able to give it a name, right? Therefore, here you can assign a lambda to a name and then call that name. Okay, I hope that answers your question. Good question. So a question is, what would be the best scenarios to go with lambda over function? Okay, the best scenarios for lambda would be whenever you want to instantaneously define a function that you don't want to use it outside, or you don't want to give it a name, then you define a lambda function. Okay, sometimes you would want a certain piece of code to be used only within a function. Then you can make it inaccessible by not giving it a name in the general workspace. I'll talk about that part later when we talk about more about modules. Okay, so generally general thumb rule you can keep in mind is lambda function is generally used when you want to define the function instantaneously. Okay, like the way we did it here. Okay, like the way we did it here, that we did not have to define a function earlier. I hope that answers your question, Babsi and Binta. Mayank, I hope I answered your question. Question from Gopi is, now that we are talking about Lambda, can we prompt the user with a Lambda function? Of course, I'm hoping that we should be able to call. Let me just give it a shot. Okay, let me just give it a shot. Okay, you can autocomplete the function names by pressing tab. Okay, double tab or single tab. Yeah, I hope it completes. Yes. Okay. All right. Let me try defining that. Okay. Insert below. All right. Let's try defining. I've not defined a lambda function. Okay. I have not yet defined a lambda function that takes input. Okay. So let me say I'm trying to say lambda x, okay, and I'm saying multiply x with something that user gives, okay. It will prompt the user again and again for the multiplier, okay. So I'm saying multiply first by 2, second by 3, third by 4, and then 5. You see that? So it multiplied first with 2, second with 3, and fourth with 3. So sorry, second with this 3, and fourth with 3, fifth with 3. Okay, you can see that. So of course you can take the input in the lambda function. Does it make sense to you? So you can do almost everything uh, with a lambda function. Lambda function is just a single line. Whatever is the value or the return, whatever is the output of the single value will be returned as will be the return value. Okay, yes, Kamal, I just did the git push. Okay, so all right, wonderful, wonderful. And yes, I hope everybody is with me so far, even those who missed earlier classes. Okay, the only way to learn to code is by coding. Okay, so that's why work with me in this class. All right. All right, so what we learned so far are wonderful things, something that people from other programming language or myself, when I was first getting introduced to Python, I did not know the wonderful thing that function is just another variable and you could define functions without the name as well using Lambda. All right, so what we were talking about is we talked about the loops, we talked about the indefinite loops, and to break an infinite loop, we can use break, or to break any loop, we could use break. Okay. And we can have loops within loops and any kind of loop within any kind of loop. And when we use break within it, When we use break with it, what it is going to do is it's going to only break the inner loop. It's going to only break the inner loop, not the outer loop. Okay? But if you have a function which is having the while loop within while loop and you say call return here, it's going to break entire flow. Okay? Again, if let's say we had a function and we would like to break all the loops, then we can actually use return value. Okay? And sometimes if we would just want to exit a program, we can use a system command called exit. Okay? Break only breaks the immediate loop. All right, so here again, a few more examples about indefinite loop. Then we started talking about the list. A list is list of things. Here, list is a list of a string. A list could also have one string, other integer, and something else. Okay, we can change a value in the list. We can append to the list. Okay, and we can sort the list and we can reverse the list, and we can also um, you know, take a look at more functions on any variable using a command called dir. Okay, I'm going to again walk you through it. So 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 we have just defined x1 and we could say print x. You see, um, we have replaced okay. All right, I'll instead of doing this, what I'll do is I'll just put print here or print at the last. I think that'll be better. Okay, print x. All right, let me just comment out this part of code. That means that we are just defining this list. Okay, list is nothing but array of things, and the list has sequence. Now we're just printing that. Now let's say we want to change first value to banana, right? So what would happen is it would change this small b to capital B, as in it replaced this with banana. Okay, and if you would like to append something more to it, then we can append something more to it. See that it appended serial to it and then printed the value of x. Okay, then we are we are here sorting x. Okay, you can see that we have sorted x. Here banana comes before because b is capital, right? Capitals are lexically lesser, as in the dictionary, in your Oxford dictionary, ideally the capital B should have been before a. Okay, so here okay, here the ASCII value of capital B is smaller than a, and that's why the capital B comes before. And here A, C, E, right? The alphabetical order. If you want to reverse after sorting, we can do this, or we can do it before also. So here it had just reversed everything. And to take a look at the functions, of any object, we can use dirx. Okay, right. If you say print reverse, you know what will happen? What will happen? Reverse does not return any value. Instead, it just reverses x. Reverse does not return any value. It just reverses x. Therefore, if you say print here, it's going to say none. Okay? It's going to say none. See that? None. All right, I think that's okay. Now let's take a look at all the functions of the the list. So here this array or the list is basically a proper object of Python. We'll talk about objects soon. here it is showing you all the functions. It's showing you append, clear, copy, count, extend. So append appends the to the value, clear clears the list, copy copies the list, and count prints the total number of elements in the list, extend increases the list to include another list, and index basically gives you the index. And here you can insert into the list at any point. Also, you can use, the more important part is that you can use list as a stack. What is a stack? A stack is something in which you whatever the element you put last, you take it first. Okay, then remove, then reverse, then sort. Okay. All right. Now I'll show you how to create the list, and then I'll show you how to push elements to you. Okay, so let's say this is your list. Okay, this is my list I'm just creating. Okay, so Yakub's question is that, okay, Yakub is not able to clone. Yes, thank you, Kamal. So I would strongly suggest that just start copying the code from the browser to your version of Notebook. Yes, basically just open this directly and open Jupyter Notebook on your laptop or desktop and start using it. Okay, if you are using CloudX Lab, you can just launch Jupyter from here and start using Jupyter on the lab. Okay, great, great. Thank you again, Kamal. Now, what we are defining is we can use a list like a stack, and that's a cool thing about it. So we could say l.append, okay, l.append, say x, okay. This, let's say this first I'll put it l, and let's take a look at l. So it is first, see that, and then I'll again append something to l. Okay, I'll just append something to L. Let's shift enter. And again, let me just print it. Okay, so you see first, second, and then if I just append the third to it, see first, second, third, right? So let's say I would like to take out the last element first, then I'll just say L dot pop, right? And again, if I say L dot pop, it'll be second. Okay, let me. All right, so let me make it proper because it's defining again and again. Or I could just, okay, I'll define pop in this. Okay, so here if I'm, okay, so first, second, third is the value that L holds right now. So if I say L dot pop, it will pop third first, and then it will pop second. You see that? And then it will pop first. Okay, and after that, it will say it's empty. Okay. So that's the way you can pop the elements from the list. Okay, so you can use a list like a stack. Okay. Also, you can iterate over the list just like we iterated anything else with on anything. So you could say item in for item in the list. Okay, you could do that. Okay, so that was a brief, brief intro of list. We'll talk about list a little bit more, and then we'll continue with other data structures. Now, you could define a for loop. The for loop is very different in case of Python. For loop is basically it iterates over a list always. Unlike while loop, it is definite loop. It is guaranteed that a for loop is going to end. And it's an important part. It's an important part because when I look at for loop, for sure I'm really sure that my code is going to end. But the moment I look at a while loop, I grow a little paranoid. I thoroughly examine my code because the while loop might end up in infinite loop. Okay, so basically okay, so basically the you can use for loop to iterate over the list, and let's say here we're trying to compute the maximum using this way, using a for loop. So what we're doing is we are going over the list, and then using a if condition we are retaining the maximum so far, and that's all. Okay, so let me just fix it. Okay, now what we again, it's a for loop that we discussed last time. For loop is nothing but for this is your variable, and this variable will be made available in this body of the loop. The loop, whenever we are defining any loop or any condition, the block is defined by the way of indentation. Colon followed by the indentation is how we define the block. The moment you end the indentation, the Python would consider that to be an end of loop. For example, this statement is outside the loop, while this statement is inside the loop, meaning this statement is going to be executed again and again. All right. So this way you can iterate over the list of elements using for loop. So while loop could keep on running a block, while loop will keep on running a block until a condition is true, and for loop will run the block for every element of a list. Okay, then we talked about conditions, how to compare, and that. Also to use a for loop, just like for going from 1 to n, we used range. Okay, all right. Then we talked about strings. Then we actually talked about strings. We talked about strings, and the way we here we are working on it. I mean, we are trying to show you that strings can be compared. Single quote and double quote, it's the same thing, but this is not true. This one is a string, this one is a number, and this is how we concatenate strings, and this is how we concatenate numbers. All right. Now, a question from Kamal is that for Java familiar guys, can we not use braces? No. The reason behind indentation is a very important one, because the code need to be maintainable, and for maintaining the code, the most important part is to have indentation. And Python made sure that people write people do not skip indentation. And that was one of the things I was actually finding it very strange, just like you, at that when I was beginning with Python. But later on, I realized that this is actually a very, very, very right decision. Okay, to use indentation instead of to enforcing indentation on the code. Okay, there are two reasons. One, it reduces the number of symbols you are using. Second, it increases the readability. Okay, you can iterate over the characters of a list because of a string, because A string is nothing but a list of characters. Okay, now moving ahead. All right, so we can iterate over the list. We can iterate over a string just like list, and we can access every element using index like this. And we can also concatenate a character with another characters. Okay, all right. So all right. So what you see is okay. So we can we can slice and dice the string or array using this kind of symbols like 0 to 4, as in starting from here till one less than the last element. So 0, 1, 2, 3. That's what it's going to give. 0, 1, 2, 3. Here 6 to 7 means 6 and up to 6, less than 7, right? So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That means P, right? Uh, and 6 to 20 means start with 6, which is P, and keep on going till 19. Okay, and that's what is Python. So this is an important part that we learned earlier. Zero colon means start with 0 and keep on going till the end. Colon means give me the entire string. Then we said colon 4 means from 0 to 4, and 1 colon means 1 till the end of end of the string. Okay, all right. So this is how we did it. Okay, keep all right. So we can also check a string inside another string using a keyword called in. In basically is good for checking against any list. Okay, so using in, we can take a character and check in this string whether that's exists or not. Similarly, the way here we are saying 2 in 1, 2, 3. Okay, and we can also compare strings just like we compare numbers. It'll be comparison will be based on the ASCII value. It'll compare this and this. If this and this are equal, then it'll compare this and this, and then it'll compare this and this. Okay, and whosoever is smaller, it'll give that one. Okay, so that's how the standard comparison are there. To find out the ASCII value of any character, you could use ORD, and it'll give you the ASCII value. Okay, then we talked about functions like upper, which converts a string into uppercase. If you want to split a sentence, we want to split the strings based on a separator, then we can use split. By default, split splits based on the white space. Okay, but you can pass an argument here saying split it based on something else. Then we can remove the new lines and other white space characters using strip, and then we can also replace one word with another using replace method. Also, we can concatenate an array using string. The important part is that we call the join method on the concatenating character. Here we are calling join on hash because we want to join this list based on hash. Okay, so if you want to concatenate a list of things using, let's say, comma, so we have to call join on comma. Okay, so we have to call join on, say, I'll convert that into an array. C is going to call join on. You see that? There's concatenated Sandeep and Giri. Okay, so this is how it is. All right, so you can concatenate these strings using comma or any other character for that matter, or any other string. See that? So this is the easiest way to concatenate things. And we can also check if some string starts with another string using starts with. All of these are in the lowercase. And okay, so that way you can also now then we talked about files. We could open a file and go over every string in the file, every line in the file using for loop. So, but before handling with handling file, we have to open the file. Okay, the easiest way to iterate over lines of a files is just use the for loop over the handle. And then we talked about reading the entire file using read method on the file handle. We could read the entire file. Okay, then we talked about now whatever we read from the file, it's going to be the entire data, and we can assign this to another variable and use it like a string. Okay, and we can also use help method to see the help on any variable. It will basically show you the documentation here inside Jupyter or inside interactive shell. All right, great. So this was kind of a recap on the list. Okay, now this is where we're going to start today. Okay, right. So list is a kind of a collection, and what's not a collection? The basic numbers are not a collection. List constants are basically, we have been using list for quite some time, and we can iterate over the list using loops, and we can look inside the string. We can go to any element in the list, just like characters in this string. The element of the list also are zero based index. So if you want to access this, we have to use 1. Okay, we have to use 1. All right, lists are mutable, meaning we can change list, while we cannot change string. If we try to change a character in this string, it'll throw an error, while we can change the element in the list. For example, in Lotto, if we want to change the second value 0, 1, 2, we want to change it to 28, we can change it. Okay, so lists are mutable. This is where we were talking about earlier. And to find out the length of a string or a list, we can use len, L-E-N. Okay, again, the string and a normal list of numbers are the same data structure, just that a string is a list of characters and list is not mutable, meaning you cannot change a string. You cannot change a string. You can change a normal list. Okay, now to find out the length of a string or a list, you can use len. Okay, also we can use a range function to generate the range of numbers. And range function returns a range object. When the range object is converted to a list, it results in a list of numbers ranging from 0 to 1 less than the parameters. Okay, 0 to 1 less than the parameter. Okay, so basically range function is really friendly way of generating numbers, and range function can be used in many ways. Okay, you can create a list object using the range function. Okay, also we can check if something is in the list or not by using, like here, 9 in sum. So it'll give us true. If say 15 in sum, it'll give us false. Okay, so we'll continue from here. All right, so should we start? Is everyone back? Great to have all of you in the session, and I'm having a wonderful set of questions from you. All right, so great. Let's start with which we had not covered earlier. So I was thinking that it'll take half an hour to just do a recap, but I think things turned out pretty interesting because we learned a couple of things. One of them was the Lambda function. We also learned how to create our own, how to call a function, as in how to pass a function as argument. So those are the few things that happen, and great. And these things would happen only if you ask questions. And yeah, the because I think somebody Bintao asked this question about lambda functions. So okay, so good. So we are uh, all right. Now we've learned so far a good deal about Python. Okay, good deal about Python. Now we're going to learn more details about a data structure called list. Okay, to check something is there in the list, we can simply use the operator called in. In basically checks if the value is same in the list. Okay, it goes from left to right, comparing a value in the list. If the value is same as any of the element, it returns true, otherwise it returns false. Okay, if the list is over and the element is not found, it returns false. Okay, so here what we're trying to show is we are trying to define um, list called friends. We're going over the friend and we are saying Happy New Year, friend. Okay, so it basically is going to print Happy New Year, Joseph, Glenn, and Sally. And afterwards, the other way of going over the list is using this. We could also say for I in the range this. What does range do? Range will generate the numbers from 0 to the length of friends. And what is length of friend? 1, 2, 3. 3 is the length of friends. Therefore, range will generate a list of numbers. List of numbers as in it will be 0, 0, 1, 2. That's what it will generate. And then for every element of that list 0, 1, 2, it's going to access the individual element of the array and then print that. So these two loops are identical. They do exactly same thing. Just that this one is far more friendlier than this one. Else we could have also used a while loop saying while I is lesser than length of friends, friend equals friend I, and then print the friend, and then I equals I minus 1, right? We could have also used indefinite loop, but indefinite loops are a little dangerous because in case you forget changing the value of I, it would end up in an infinite loop. Okay, an interesting part is a lot of operations on the list are really simple. For example, if you want to concatenate two lists, we can we can just use plus sign. Plus will basically add these two lists, as in concatenate these two lists and assign it to the new variable. Individual list will remain unchanged. Okay, let's take a look. Let's take a look. Here, you see, we are able to, and even if we take a look at the print of B, it's going to be same as what it was earlier, while C is a concatenation of the two. So it's extremely simple to concatenate the two lists. Also, lists can be sliced just like strings. Okay, let's say we want to access all the elements starting at index 1 but lesser than 3. Lesser than 3. Okay, so 1, 2, right? That's what it means. So if you say print here, let me just put print everywhere. Okay, let me just put print everywhere so that all the results are printed. Otherwise, only the last line is printed. Okay, so you can see that here in this case, we got 41 and 12. In this case, everything is starting from the beginning till 1 less than 4, which is 0, 1, 2, and 3. Correct? That's what is this number. Okay, this is an important part because I keep on forgetting this part. That's why. Okay, I want to emphasize a little more. Similarly, when I say T3, 3 means third index is starting from 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, right? So starting from here till the end, that's what it means, which is same as this, you see. And then this means everything. This means everything, right? So this is how the indexing array list can be sliced using colon. Okay. So second number is basically up to but not including. Now to find out the methods on the list, you can simply say dir, or you could also say help here. Let's say help this. See, here it shows us the detailed list of help. Okay. A question somebody asked, what is these add functions? These are nothing but internal functions. Okay, this is just another function. We'll talk about objects and classes and talk about these functions. These are mm, valid variables. Okay, so you can have append, clear, copy, count, extend, and index and insert, pop. You take a look at the definition, try using these functions, you'll get your answer. Okay, all right. So these are the various list methods. Now building a list from scratch. We can create an empty list and then add elements using the append method. The list stays in order and new elements are added at the end of list. We've talked about this already. Okay. A list is a ordered sequence. List is a ordered sequence, which means that we can access usually, but you can also use a method called sort to order the elements based on our choice. Otherwise, the elements will be in this way in which we have created or appended to. Okay. There are There are built-in functions that work very well on the list. Built-in functions such as length, max, minimum, sum. These are the built-in functions, okay, which Python provides to operate on the list. All right. So let me just show you this example. And all right. So I think so you can see that to compute average, we can use sum divided by length. And here we could also compute average in this way, that we keep on taking the input from the user and keep on converting that into float, and then keep on adding the total and keep on increasing the count, right? That's how it is. So let's say we want to compute the average of 3, 4, and 6. And we just say done. You can see that it has computed the average like this. Is it clear to everyone? Please feel free to ask the question because that is the only way to learn. Okay, doing the hands-on, asking the questions would help you in learning. Those are the ways of learning. Okay, not one way, as in if I keep speaking and explaining, the chances are that you are going to forget whatever you learn in the class. No questions? Let me just decrease the font bit. Okay, this computing average is basically pretty simple. We are just computing the summations and that's it. Okay. At points, this tutorial might sound really simple, and because it's aimed for people who are absolutely new to Python. Therefore, a question from Bindao is that what is the difference between built-in function and inner function you just mentioned? Built-in functions are basically the default functions defined as part of the Python default package. And those functions basically, I'll show you what does it mean. It's called built-in function, not here. I think there's okay. We can, it's basically by default there is a package called built. Okay, built-in functions are nothing but those are the functions provided by default in your current workspace. Okay, and the inner functions are something that we define, and we can define functions inside a function. We'll talk about that part later. Okay, so all right, where were we? Yeah, computing the average. So computing the average, everybody is able to run it and see the output. Who all are able to run the compute average? Either of the two? There's only minor difference between the two. In one, we are counting ourselves. In other, we are using length function. No questions? All right. So listen, strings are best files. We could concatenate things. Okay, let's go ahead. We have already talked about these things. Okay, so all right. So now the next thing I would like to talk about is dictionaries. All right, so experiment with the list. Check all the functions that list provides and operate on the list. Based on whatever we've discussed here, you will be able to accomplish almost everything with the list. Okay, and other than list, the next data structure. So list was a structure of data, and what kind of structure was that? It was kind of a linear list of things. You can create a queue out of list, and you could also utilize it for iterations. You could do many things with the list. Okay, you could do many things in the list. A question from Kamal is there anything in Python which is not zero based? Interesting. Let me think. So the arrays are zero based. Strings are zero based. What is not zero based? Okay. Okay. Mm, most of these things are basically zero based index, right? I don't think, maybe inside the data frame somewhere, or maybe the SQL result set, we might use one based index when we are interacting with external systems. Okay. Even the format strings are zero based. I'm not sure if anything is one based. Okay. Good question. Good question. I'll have to think over it. Now, great. So let's understand dictionaries. Dictionaries are important, and we, in other programming language, we consider studying the data structure as such a big deal. But in Python, everything is really natural. It's part of the main program. Okay, it's part of the main programming. Okay, so Python dictionaries are something that you'll find it really useful. We have already used it once actually while doing the word count. So a collection is nice because we can put more than one value in it and carry them all around in one convenient package. We have bunch of values in single variable. We do this by having more than one place in the variable, right? So we can do this by having more than one place in the variable, right? You'll see that. I think the theory doesn't make much sense. The practical would make more sense. Okay. We have ways of finding the different places in the variable. We'll talk about these. A question from Rajesh is that, can you please explain the purpose of self in the functions? Self is generally used in the functions that are in the class. We'll talk about objects and classes soon. And self means that the self is the reference to the object itself. Okay, this we'll talk about the objects tomorrow. Okay. So what is not a collection? Collection, the primitive values are not collection. Okay. A story of two collections. One is called list and other is called dictionary. List is basically list of things in order, and dictionary is a bag of values where each element has got a label. Okay. Each element is got a label. Right now you can see that the list is nothing. You can when you think about list is, you can think of list like when you go to it could be your grocery list, and dictionary is when you buy the groceries and you have all the groceries and there's a name and you have kept these groceries in a way that you can quickly access them by their label. That's dictionary. Okay. All right. So dictionaries are basically, you can see that that's dictionary. You see, there's a calculator, tissue, perfume, money, candy, and so on. Right? Dictionaries are Python's most powerful data structure, and it's basically data collection. And dictionaries allow us to do fast database-like operation in Python. Dictionaries have different names in different languages. In Perl, we used to call them associative arrays, and properties or map or hash map in Java, property bag in C# and .NET, and so on. Dictionaries basically, okay, so you can think of dictionaries a list where the index is based on a name, a label, instead of position. So that's how you can think of dictionary. And the way you initialize the dictionary is by using dict. So we are saying purse equals dict, and purse equals money. Purse, money is 12, candy is 3, tissues are 75. Okay, and so on. So you can see that. All right. This is how you define dictionaries. Comparing lists and dictionaries. So basically in dictionary, there is no append operation. Instead, whenever you are adding something, you are adding it with a label. Okay, you're adding it with a label. So dictionary is basically a bunch of keys and values. Okay, there are 2-3 questions. Let me address those questions. One is from Binta. How many data types are there in Python? Number, string, tuple, dictionary, and list. Right? And I think that's pretty much, and even the function is kind of a data type. So we'll talk about, I mean, though function is not considered a data type, but it's basically a variable pointing to a function. Okay. And okay. Yes, Srinath, the SQRT is not a built-in function. It's part of the math package. So you have to import math and then call math.sqrt. Question from Kamal, point from Gopi. When objects and classes are covered, we will find out. Okay. All right. Okay, great, great. So keep the questions coming, and yeah. So I whenever I finish a concept, then I would take up your questions. All right. So on one hand, you see that this is how we operated on list. We defined a list, we appended to the list, and then we printed the list, right? And in case of dictionary, it's basically key values. Here, if you think about list is nothing but a zero-based index. So on 0, it is 20, 21. On 1, it's 183. Here, in case of dictionary, the key is basically string. So dictionary is basically like a list, just that the key is string. Okay. Okay. So we can also initialize our dictionary like this. right? In array, we did a square bracket, and here it is curly bracket. So we can simply define our empty dictionary like this, okay? Or we can define our dictionary like this. So simple, right? So we can quickly define our dictionary very easily. I can show you right away instead of making you wait. All right, let's take a look. All right, so the way we define a dictionary is first we say dict, and then we say we can keep on start on putting the values like this. Okay, what's the point? We will be able to solve many problems using dictionary, and a lot of complex problems can be solved using dictionary like this. Okay, and here we have added another key called course, and value is 182, and then we are saying print. So it will show you this. Also, we could define the dictionary like this. Here we are defining a dictionary like this. We are saying JJJ is this. So we can print JJJ and see that it has created it. Then we can access it using, we can also access it using JJJ, and we say check. Okay? So it's extremely simple to use dictionaries in Python. Okay, sounds great, right? All right, all right. Let's say, let's say we are trying to find out what is the most common name. Marquardt, Jen, CSAV, Jen again, and then so many names are there. We want to find out. We want to find out which one is the most common name. Okay, just that the only one name is available at a time. We are not able to see all of the names together. So the most common name we have to find out of all of these names. Then what we have to do is we have to keep the count. We have to start counting that CSAV has occurred so many times, and this has occurred so many times, and so on. And then we find out which one has the maximum frequency. Okay, which one has a maximum frequency. All right. So one common use of dictionary is counting how often we see something. So here we have defined a dictionary, and we are going over the words and keep adding them. Okay, adding them here. All right. And and then at the end of it, we can always check which one is the maximum. So it is an error to reference a key that does not exist in dictionary. So before trying to extract a value from a dictionary, what we could do is we could use in function. Okay, we could use in function. Say here we could see, let's say there is chuck, so we could always say chuck in JJJ. See that? It is true. Is there a quick way to print keys? Good question. So you could always say JJJ and say keys. Okay. So you can see that we have printed the dictionary of keys. Okay. We have printed the list of keys from the dictionary. Okay. I think in the similar way, you can also do values, I'm hoping. Yes. Okay. So we can use in operator to check if a value, if a key exists or not. Okay. Now, if what we're going to do is we're going to do the word count. Okay, we are going to do the word count, and the way we are going to do is we're going to initialize the dictionary. It's a common program, by the way. What we want to do is we want to find out the the frequencies of the word in this array. Okay, array. Okay, so what we're going to do here is for name in names. If name not in counts, in names, then we're iterating over this list of names. If the name is found in the dictionary, which means we have encountered a particular name already, then this would happen. Otherwise, if name not in count, which means if a particular name is not existing in the dictionary, we initialize it by 1. That means we increase the count of the existing one. Sounds good? So CSAF would not exist in the dictionary in the beginning, and that's why we will get here. So the count of CSAF will become 1 and so on, right? Okay. Now here we are using if condition that if the name is not found, then consider the value to be 1, otherwise consider the value to be 1 greater than that. Okay. The get method for dictionaries, the this pattern of checking to see if a key is already in a dictionary and assuming a default value if the key is not there is so common that there is a method called get that does it for us. So this kind of condition is so common that there is an alternative to it. So get the value for this key, if not found, give me 0. So the whole if else condition becomes a very simple condition like this. Cool. So instead of writing if else, we could simply use this. And this is exactly what it is doing. It is saying that give me the value for the key if it exists, otherwise give me 0. Okay. Now, simplified counting with get. Okay. Now, the same thing, the same function we have rewritten using get. I'll show you. This is what we're trying to achieve. So we are going over the list and saying count name equals to give me the previous value. If the previous value is not there at all, give me 0 and then add to 1. So we are able to the skip the counting. Okay, that's what it is. All right. So basically the default value is supplied there. Okay. So this is how you could simply count the words in the bag of words. All right. So again, if we let's say there is a file and we want to do the word count in that file, we could read that as an input, and then we could, either read that as input, or we could open the file and read the line by line and do the word count, right? Like for example here, let me just take this example. Okay. So here it's asking for line of text. I'm saying this is some text of this file. Okay. So here it has basically read that as a single string, splitted it using a split function. Then it's going over each word in this list. Okay. And then increasing the count of each word. Okay. And that's pretty much. Okay. So does it make sense to you? Is it clear to everyone? This particular program, it's important program. A question from Kamal: when I press tab to show keys, how would I know that how I have to use brackets? If you don't use bracket, it will show you that it's a function. And okay, When you do that, it will show you that it's a function, and then you'll know that it is to be used with brackets. Are, are all the options that come on pressing tab will be, will it be methods, and we should append. Okay. Are all the options that come on pressing tab after dot, will it be methods and we should append? Okay, honestly, the auto completion will not be a good strength of any loosely typed language. Python is not strongly typed language. It's mostly dynamic typing, and therefore the auto completion would be based on the dynamic data type. And the better way to understand a meaning of object is by using help or dir function on top of that object. You can say help bracket your object name and it'll show you a better help. All right. A question from Bintav is that counts name equals counts name plus one. Okay. Yes, let me go up. You mean this part? Okay. Question is the right side value or number? It's a number. So it basically, whatever we have kept earlier at the time of initialization, it'll be that data type, right? Okay. A question from Rajesh. Can you give an example of list, tuple, and dictionary, when to use which one? Okay, we'll compare lists and tuples later. For now, list is a sequence of values, and dictionary is where you have name and value pairs. Okay. Okay. Dictionaries is when you have key and value. And list is basically for the case where the list there is only a list of values. Okay. You will know the cases. Okay. Okay. A question from Kamal is, but it would have been great if the autocomplete showed that which of them functions and what parameters like keys. Correct. Correct. Okay. The fact is that Jupyter is basically a wrapper around the interactive shell. So it basically reads from the interactive shell and then it would work. Okay. If you want to go for more, you are more used to functions and parameters, then maybe, and as Gopi is suggesting, using PyCharm or maybe the other IDs would help you better. Okay. And that's why it is that way. Okay, the only problem, the biggest advantage of the languages like Python is that, and why Jupyter comes into play is that when you're building a bigger program, what you do is you create really tiny pieces of code, and while you are doing that, you keep on testing each part, whether it's working or not, and then you assemble the entire thing together. Unlike the other languages, like, for example, Java or C Sharp or other strongly typed languages, where what you do is just on the basis of auto completion, you keep on writing a lot of code and then you run it later. But in case of Python, what you do is you keep on testing and running each line, each piece of code, and then, it will then you assemble the things together. And I'll show you the last time the I mean in case of Python, the work is extremely fast. It's really fast because you're able to test out your hypothesis then and there, instead of using a documentation and then building the logic. Here, what you do is you create the expression, and that's something very important. And you'll realize that is the biggest strength of the interactive shells or an environment like Jupyter. Okay, good question. Good question. I think that helps others also. Okay, all right, great. Right. So we can run over the whole dictionary very easily by using for loop. Okay, by using for loop, and it's extremely simple. So going over a dictionary is extremely simple. What you can do is you can simply say define a dictionary called Chuck, a dictionary called counts, in which there are three keys: Chuck, Fred, and Jen. The value of Chuck is 1, Fred is 42, Jen is 10, 100. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to just print the values. And the way we do is we say for key in counts. You see that? And then we say print key and counts key, right? This way we can quickly access the values. Or we could even say, if we could even say keys here, and still the results will be the same. Okay, so by default we can iterate over the keys by simply using for loop. Okay, wonderful, great. So this is how it works. Now, all right. So we can retrieve the key and the values in a very simple manner. We could simply either convert the dictionary into a list in which we will get the only the keys, or we can use the keys function, or and to get the values we can use values. And if we want to iterate over the items, then we could simply say items. Okay. If you want to, let's say you want to go over the pair at a time, right? So what we could do is we could say things like this: for first variable, second variable in items, right? So AA will be Chuck, BB will be value, or we could say name, and I'll say val, and here goes the name and val. Okay, so you can see that. Um, so this is what's happening here. You see that? So you can you can basically iterate over the pairs, okay, and you'll get the whole pair in the name and value. Okay, all right. Now here is a revisited word count. Word count again is basically we are going to basically read the name of the file from the user, open the file, read the entire text, split the text based on the space or the any white space, and then create a dictionary. We can create dictionary like this, or we can also create dictionary like this with the curly brackets. Okay, nothing much about it. Okay, and afterwards we are iterating over this list is basically the iterative the word count, and then we are basically updating our hash table as we iterate over the list of words. We are updating our hash table by this way. Okay, and then for we are iterating over the items. We are iterating over the items like this: the word and count in counts.items, the counts that we have just recovered, and then we are basically trying to find the biggest word. Okay, trying to find biggest word. So we are iterating on all of the values, and we're iterating over all of the values, and we're just trying to find the biggest word. And how are we doing that? We are going over the dictionary that we have just prepared here, and we are basically checking if the biggest word so far has reached or not. And how are we doing? We are checking if big count is none, or count is greater than the current value. This count is greater than our biggest count so far. If so, we are updating this. Okay, so first time when we enter into this if condition first time, what will happen is big count will be none, and therefore this word will be updated and big count will be updated. Now second time, big count will not be none, but the actual count will be compared with the previous big count. Okay, and the same way will continue for all the items. So we will gather at the end of it the biggest word and the count of biggest word in these two variables, and that's what we're printing it. Okay, so here I'm just entering the name of the file called ampbox.txt, and here it shows that the 2007, which is a word, has occurred 20,000 times in the mbox.txt. All right. All right. So is everybody clear about the dictionary? Okay. Now there are a couple of questions that I would like to answer. Question from Kamal that can we do this kind of incremental coding in PyCharm like we are doing in Jupyter Console? So I haven't used PyCharm too much, but what I found is that PyCharm is more like a full-fledged text editor. So I'm not sure you can do that, but there will be some inbuilt console like you have in text editors, right? So it looks like Gopi has already answered. All right, good, good. Now, question from Tanmay is there a NVL-like function, like NVL x comma 0 and gives 0 if x is null? Okay, so what is NVL? Here get is there, right? The get is actually, that's what get is. Okay. If the value does not exist, then it gives you 0. Okay. So I think that's what NVL also does. A question from Gopi is big count the number of characters? No, big count is basically total counts. All right. Okay, so you can see that this is what we're trying to do here. If you see here, okay, great, great. So that was, I mean, we have already talked about most of it. Great. So, all right, a very important topic. I hope I'm not sounding as if I'm rushing through things, or am I sounding like I'm rushing through things? If you feel at any point that I'm rushing through things, please feel free to stop me. Okay. Okay. And how do you find out that I'm rushing through? You can ask questions at any point. Okay. In case you do not understand anything, you just ask me. Okay, just stop me and ask that what does it mean. Okay, that generally signals me that probably I'm rushing through fast. Okay, okay, so the inserting logic one more time please. Okay, I'll just go over this. All right, so in a dictionary you can insert values just like you insert uh, the values in anything, just that we will we will uh, I think I'll in easier case will be that I'll just write in empty one. Okay, let's say I want to define my bag. My bag is a dictionary. My bag is a dictionary. Okay, I just defined a dictionary. Good. And I can add values to it. So my bag has got um, you see the notebooks. Okay, notebooks equals, I'll just say notebooks. How many notebooks I've got? One. And my bag has got number of pens as 5, and my bag has got, the value could be anything. It doesn't necessarily have to be integer. It could be anything. And my bag could have, uh, let's say laptop equals true. Okay. Now I can access things like laptop so easily here. Now let me see what happens. The true is not defined. Why? Because T have to be capital. Okay. So you see, yes, my bag has got laptop. Now if I want to check pen, you can see that yes, there are 5 pens. Then similarly, we have got notebooks. Okay. So you have got one, right? Now, if you want to find out what are the things, just the name of things that are left in my bag, I could just say my bag dot keys. Okay. If you want to check if there is any notebook in my bag, okay, notebooks in my bag, I can use this kind of syntax where it returns true. Okay. Good question. Now moving ahead. So similarly, if we want to just get all the list, okay, we could just get the entire list by saying items. So we could extract the entire items like this. Okay. And so this way, in case let's say we want to access something that doesn't exist in the bag, then it will throw an error. Says there is key error. So in such cases, let's say if um, if something is not there, we want to check if something is not there, we can say if this in my bag, and I'm saying bingo. Okay. All right. Else I say okay. So it says sorry, the laptop one isn't existing. It says bing. Okay. So does it make sense to you, Subrahman? Now is it clearer? The same thing that we have applied here also. There's just one difference that we are using the get function. Okay, sure. So actually don't right now do not struggle with that. All you do is my strong suggestion would be that just start using this file directly. Okay, basically pick that up and start copy pasting into your Jupyter editor. That will be the, not this one, I'm sorry. Yeah, this one. Okay, not this one. I'll just get it from GitHub. Somebody post my GitHub repository? Not this. Okay, GitHub repository. Okay. All right. So somebody can post the GitHub repository, or I can find it for you. I would say that you just pick up the Jupyter this particular file, and instead of this particular file from GitHub, instead of trying to set it up. Just click on that. Good part about GitHub is that they have a notebook viewer inbuilt in their repository, and then they can use it. All right, great. There's one more question from Tanmay. What is the difference between none or empty string or uninitialized values. Okay, so uninitialized value is definitely an error. Okay, I have posted it, don't worry. Thank you, Kamal. All right, so a question from Tanmay is that what's the difference between the none and the others? Okay, let me just insert it here. Insert cell below. Okay, so let me just try to show you. Let's say we have not defined a variable called x, and if we say this, this one, this x is not defined. So it's basically an error in your code. Okay, if we try to use an undefined variable. Okay, if we are assigning something, if we are assigning something which does not return anything, in those cases the value of x is going to be none. Okay, none is not none means there is nothing in that variable. Okay, it's equivalent to null. While if we are defining a variable y, okay, this is basically a valid value. Empty string is a valid value. Okay, so so if we try saying seeing y equals x equals y, then let me just print this. It's false. The other thing that you should notice is the data type of x and y. The data type of the x is none type, while data type of y is string. See, the data type of, let me just print it instead of that. Okay, you can see that the data type of y is string, data type of x is none type, and the the x and y are not equal. Okay, so I hope that clears it. And in case we try to refer a variable which is not yet defined, it's a error. Great. All right, I hope that answers your question. All right, great. Now, where I was. Okay. All right, wonderful set of questions. Keep the questions coming. That's the only way to learn, and try to answer each other's question. And that way you will also learn to resolve errors and learn things better. Okay, when you try to explain something to somebody, it helps you learn better. You get a better grasp on the concepts. Okay, great. A question from Kamal is, what would be the purpose of ever using x equals print? There won't be much of use to it, but I was just trying to demonstrate that what if you forgot the return value in your function? If your function is not returning and you're seeing none everywhere, the way Gopi was getting it earlier, that why does it show none in when we were using print with my map? So I was just demonstrating that part. Okay, all right. So you and the objective of none would be sometimes, let's say you are the way in the word count example, we initialized our values to none, right? You saw that? That is another usage of here. You see, big count is none because in case we put some value here and we are trying to compare that with the actual value, then not going to work. Instead, we initialize both of them to none and compared. If it's none, then do this, and then check this, or check this and then do this. Okay, since while comparing and finding the biggest, most most frequent number, or sorry, while finding the biggest number, we need to keep the initial value to compare with. If and therefore there has to be some value, right? So instead of that, what we did was we defined it none and checked if it's none. Okay, good question. And yes, and that's the reason why zero and none was invented the last in everywhere, because um, people did not find the value of the numeral zero because of the same reason. That was the point of having a number which does not represent anything. Okay, so none is equal to, there is nothing in it, but there is a variable with that name. Okay, there's a variable with that name which does not hold any value yet. That's what is none. It's like null pointer. It's like null in Java and in others. Okay, great, great. Now let's start with one thing which is really different from other programming language, and this is tuples. Tuples are like lists, and as a matter of fact, you would not be able to differentiate tuples from lists. Okay, and the and there is a huge difference between the way you think about tuples and the way you think about lists. Okay, so tuples are another kind of sequence that functions much like list. They have elements which are indexed using based on zero based index, and the only difference you will notice is that tuples are defined by brackets. Tupled tuples are defined by brackets. Okay, so here you can see that. All right, and the way we define tuples is using the round brackets, and we can iterate over tuples just like we iterated over the list. Okay, as well as I think I should type while I talk, otherwise you will feel sleepy. Okay, so you can define tuples like this and access tuples like this using the second index. Okay, so you see that we define x equals this and printed this, which is 2, 0, 1, 2. Okay, and then we said y is this, and then we printed it. And also the functions like max, min, and everything works fine on tuples as well. Okay, we could also check the length of tuples using len method. Okay, using len method, len. Okay, you can see that the length of tuple is 3. We can also iterate over tuple just like this. Okay, just like this. Could just say for iteration variable, whatever you want to keep in the y, and then print. All right. Now, the difference part. The difference is tuples are immutable. Immutable means you cannot change a value of tuple once defined. The way you change the value of x, right? You change the value of x at second index. The same thing you cannot achieve either in a string or in tuple. Okay, or in tuple. So you cannot make changes to an existing tuple. All right. The tuple do not have methods like sort, append, reverse, and others. Okay. So while list has all these methods, tuples do not have it. Tuples are great for passing around bunch of values and operating on read-only records. Okay, so if you take a look at the functions in tuple and functions in list, there is a huge list of functions. In case of list, you can see that there are so many functions in the list, while tuple have only two functions: count and index. Okay, count and index, while list has so many methods. So in tuples you cannot append, you cannot extend tuple as in extend to another to include another list that you can do on tuple, and you can insert or remove and other things. You define tuples, iterate over it, access the values, but do not change the tuple. That's the general use case of tuple. Tuples are really, really lightweight and efficient. Okay, tuples are very efficient and very lightweight. So you can assign list of values from one tuple to another, the way we are defining here. So you can assign multiple values from a tuple to multiple variables. So, okay, so tuples are really lightweight, and when you want to do more efficient operations, you use tuples. Also, tuples support these kind of ways, right? You could say x comma y and 4 comma Fred, and so on. You see that? All right. So, so that brings us back to the same question that we started with. How do you return multiple values? You can return multiple values using tuples more efficiently. Okay? More efficiently. Also, you can pass a tuple as argument to a function and be sure that tuple will not be modified by that function, right? In case of array, if you passed an array to a function, that function might tamper with your array, but not with tuples. Okay, not with tuples. And those who are coming from Java, they will know that how to create tuples using uh, only creating getters, not setters, and defining only the only the constructors to create tuples. Okay. All right. So this is how you utilize tuples. I'll show you. Okay. And yes. So when we define tuples, we cannot assign to it. We cannot do sort, append, or reverse on tuples. And if we take a look at dir, dir basically gives you all the methods on anything. You can see that there are so many methods on the list, while tuples only has two methods, two public methods. That means tuples are generally more efficient than the list. Okay, you can assign multiple variables like this. Okay, you can take a look. Okay, yeah. So we are able to access y and we are able to access x, right? As well as similarly, we can also access a and b, right? So this way when we define tuples, these are very useful. Also, we can define our functions. We can define our functions which return tuples. So let's say I'm trying to return anything. Let's say I'm trying to find out order, right? Order these two elements, x and y, right? Order n. Okay, I'm just writing that in order to, if x is greater than y, return x comma y, otherwise return y comma x. Okay, now you can see that I can call it with 1 comma 2, I can call it with 4 comma 5, and I could define x and y equals this. You see that? So return values can be assigned to multiple variables. Okay. Oh, I'll just change this. Okay. So you can see that I have defined a, b, x, and y. Okay. See that we can use print with multiple variables like this. So you can see that a is 2, b is 1, x is 5, y is 4. Right? Is it clear to everyone? Okay. So, and when we say items, items was nothing but list of tuples. Items was nothing but list of tuples. And I'll show you what does it mean by items. Okay. So when we said earlier that dictionary has items, right? We were defining our dictionary like this. Okay. And when we said jjj.items, you see that it printed this. And you can take a closer look at it. It is round brackets inside and outside it's a square bracket. That means it's made up of tuples. It's made up of tuples. Okay. So tuples are also comparable. This is a very interesting aspect of a tuple. Okay. Just like we compare strings, similarly, we can also compare tuples. Okay. I'm going to show you here. So which one is bigger? Yes. So this one is bigger. All right. And if we compare 1 comma 2 comma 3, it'll say false because both are equal, and therefore we can just check with true. You can compare tuples very easily. Okay. If both are elements are same, then you see okay, so you see that basically this one on the left hand side is bigger than the right hand side. If both have same element, the one that has got more elements is bigger. Okay. So and similarly you can just check here. In this case this one is bigger. So first left value is checked with, so first value is checked with first value, second value is checked with second value, and so on. Okay. So this way a tuple is compared. A question from Gopi. So if the items in tuples and tuples are in the dictionary, since dictionary is mutable and tuples are immutable, can you replace tuples values by using it in dictionary? Not really. If items is tuples, okay. So when we say items, items is a function and it returns a list of tuples. So it converts the values, it converts the key and the values from the dictionary into a list of tuples. Okay, each key and value become a tuple, or sometimes a tuple is also, some people pronounce it as tuple. I'm not sure which one is right, but I'm more comfortable with tuple. Okay. And since dictionary is mutable and tuples are immutable, can you replace tuples values by using it in dictionary? Not really. I hope I answered your question. So basically when we call items, right, when I call items here, it's basically translating the dictionary into the list of tuples. Okay. And what's the difference between a list of tuples and a dictionary? In the list of tuples, all right, so that's what is explained here. And here here the comparison on the strings is same as numbers. Okay. Now we can sort the items of a list using a method called sorted, and okay, we can do this even more directly using the built-in function sorted that takes a sequence as a parameter and returns a sorted sequence. So using sorted, we can order the elements. We can also sort the elements of a list using the value, okay, using the value and by saying by basically changing the order, okay. If we could construct a list of tuples of the form value and the key, we could sort the elements based on the value. We can do this with a for loop that creates a list of tuples. Okay. So let's say we want to find out the top 10 uh, most common words. Okay, I'll show you. I'm going down here, here. Okay, so what we have is this one. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to find top most 10 most common words. Top 10 most common words. And how do you do that? What we're going to do is first find the frequencies of those 10. First find out the frequencies of all the words. And how do you find the frequencies of all the words? Break the words from the file into 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 one word, into a list of words. Break the text from a file into an array of words, and then for that array, okay, so you read the file, create a dictionary, then we go line by line in this file, we split each line and create an array of words, then iterate over this array of words and then update the dictionary. Now by the end of this loop, from here to here, by the end of this loop, what we would have is a dictionary containing the frequencies, okay, word and the frequencies. Dictionary is nothing but a key value collection, okay. And here the counts is basically a frequency table which is not really ordered by the frequency. So what we did here is we we iterated over it and changed the order of the created a new list having value as first and key as the second element of the tuple, right? And the end of this, okay, let me just delete this part and show you print lst. Okay, it's going to be really huge. Okay, when you see asterisk here, that means it's going to take a lot of time. It's taking a lot of time. Okay, so what we have done is we have computed the frequency of words, okay, and we have shifted the order. We have said let the key becomes the second element of tuple and value becomes the first value here. This is what we did. So we are appending to the list a tuple. You see the brackets inside brackets? That means we are appending to this list a pair, a tuple, in which the first is the count, second is the word, okay, and then we are okay. Then we are saying sort. There is a method called sort on a list which sorts the data based on the key, and by default it will sort in ascending order, and we are telling that do it in the descending order. Okay. Otherwise, we could have just put a minus here, that means negative, and then we could have just sorted in a normal fashion. Okay, you can see that the the most frequent word was 2007, second most popular word was buy, third one was received, and then from, with, and so on. Because this mail mbox.txt is basically mailbox. Okay. We could also do without the reverse. We could basically put minus here and then do the sorting. Okay. I hope you get the idea of. I hope I was able to explain to you the value of a tuple. Using tuple, we can order elements so that they can be compared. Here, that's what we are using. When we are using sort, we are basically using tuple as the compare for comparison. Okay, so we have a really shorter version of the same thing. The mbox.txt is in the same file, same folder. I've committed that also to the repository. Okay. Now we can also write the same thing in the other format. It's called list comprehension. List comprehension. It basically creates a dynamic list. The same for loop that we studied earlier can be used in this way as well. So we'll continue from the list comprehension tomorrow. And tomorrow after this, we are going to continue with the with the regular expressions. Okay, so tomorrow's session is going to be really important because data churning, data processing is extremely dependent on the regular expressions, and regular expressions make life easier in text processing or any other data processing. So be there tomorrow. I look forward to see you tomorrow. All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye. Have a good day.